And our next property in section 4.1 is the associative property, and that's both for addition and for multiplication. So what you're seeing here is that we have the associative properties for multiplication, where we can group A and B and multiply it by C, or we can group B and C to multiply by A. And we learned this when we learned to multiply a bunch of numbers together. And we learned that those things could be done in different different groupings. And we know the same is true for addition. And like I said in class, that how we use this was to make multiplying and make addition of a bunch of numbers easier on ourselves. And we were taught these things about 4th grade. So on the left-hand side here, 5 plus 4 plus 7 plus 3, we see that we can group this 5 and the 4, and we can group the 7 and the 3, and make that problem really easy, right? 9 plus 10, 19. But where it's really going to come in helpful for us is in algebra, saying that we can group like terms, right? The 6x plus x plus 8 can be grouped as 6x plus x and then plus the 8, because the 6x and the x are what we call like terms. More on that later. And then in part C here, you see more of the same ideas in algebra, that x plus 7 plus 3 we can regroup instead as x plus 7 plus 3, because 7 and 3 are alike, so we can actually add them up and do what we call simplifying. Again, more to come later. And then part D as well, we have 8 times 7n versus 8 times 7 times n. And again, this is going to help us out in algebra, because then we see how we can multiply for 8 and 7, and then that gives us what we call a numeric coefficient of a variable. And we see the same thing happening in part E, but now we see that we've associated not just 2, but we've actually associated 3. So the associative property gets extended. Now, example 4 here, we just want to take a look at the fact that the associative property is not valid for either subtraction or division, and just prove that a little bit to ourselves. So example number 4, I'm going to say 5 minus 2, which is, or 5 minus 3, which is 2, and then minus 2, which is 0, and this does not equal 5 minus 3 minus 2, well 3 minus 2 is 1, and 5 minus 1, which is equal to 4. And you see that those two are not equal. So the associative property is not being applicable for subtraction. You can't group the first two and then subtract the second one, versus grouping the second two and subtracting it from the first. That just doesn't work. And then the second part here, for part B, it doesn't work for division either. So 10 divided by 2, which is 5, and then 5 divided by 2, which gives you 2.5. And then we have on the other side 10 divided by 2 divided by 2, so this says 10 divided by 1, and 10 divided by 1 is 10, and we see 2.5 is not equal to 10. So that shows that the the associative property does not work for division either, because we got a false statement when we grouped the first two and then divided by the last one, versus grouped the last two and divided the first one by it. So not going to be okay. Now let's go talk about this paragraph right here, which introduces some of our vocabulary. So terms, those things are what you see separated by the addition and subtraction here. And so inside parentheses doesn't count as terms. So this is a term and this is a term, in other words. But each of these are terms. And 6x is a term, and the constants 3 and 7, and those are terms. So any number variables or variables multiplied by numbers. And when we have ones that are alike, we call them like terms, and that means the variables are exactly alike, like 6x and x. Those are like terms. And then the associative property is going to allow us to group to associate the numbers so we can get a numeric coefficient. So those are just some words we'll see to come. And again, we'll see